So next I'd like to introduce you to Courtney Phifer. Courtney's going to talk to you about those sugar cravings and what, how sugar has a hold on you. And I'll be back to talk with you at the end of the webinar. And we'll talk more about what the opportunities are for you. So be sure to stay with us until the end so we can talk about how to put things you love back on your list and how to stop obsessing about food in your body. So I'm going to let you know that Courtney is a registered dietitian. She's extremely expert at what she does. She's one of the best dietitians I've ever worked with. And I'll let her tell you a little bit more about herself and about sugar cravings.
It's so nice to meet you. Thank you, Dr. Ross, for that introduction. I am a registered dietitian and an expert in the field of eating disorders. I have 9 years of experience working with eating disorders and emotional eating. And so that's my passion, and I love helping people to make behavior changes. So how do you know if sugar has a hold on you? How do you know if you have sugar cravings? So with me right now, you're going to learn signs of sugar cravings, what sugar cravings are really about, why it's important to break free of sugar cravings, what freeing can mean with sugar cravings, and some things that might get in the way of breaking free from sugar cravings, like black and white thinking and external cues. So we'll talk a little bit about all of those things. And so first of all, how do you know if sugar has a hold on you, and what are the signs? Do you look for something sweet after the meal? Do you crave sweets? Do you try to avoid sweets, but then end up overeating them? Do you act impulsively around sweets? Do you reward yourself with sweets? Do you eat these things in private? Do you turn to sweets when you're stressed? Do you have obsessive thoughts about sweets or other foods? So these are signs of sugar cravings. If you can relate to any of these, then stick around to the end of this webinar. So if you can relate to those signs of sugar cravings, I want to know, what are your cravings really about? And I'm here to tell you that it's not just about the food. You may be surprised to learn that sugar cravings and other cravings really have underlying emotions, events that drive that behavior to turn to them for comfort. And that's something that you're going to hear more about from Leslie later on in the webinar. So by learning what your craving is about, you can have freedom from obsessing and let go of the fear, which may be leading you to feel powerless around these foods. Without this knowledge, you might stay stuck in fear and continue this behavior that could escalate and further negatively impact you and your loved ones. So I want you to know that you can have a healthy relationship with sweets, and you can have freedom. And stick around to the end of the webinar and we will show you how to do that. Why is this important to learn about your cravings and to break free from your sugar cravings? It's important because your eating habits have an impact on your physical health and well-being. Your eating habits have an impact on your loved ones. For instance, your children learn from your eating habits and the messages that you send about your food, about your body, and about food in the household. And you want them to have a positive experience with food and a positive body image growing up that will last them into adulthood. Your eating habits have an impact on your mental health. Your eating habits can make or break you having peace of mind when it comes to different food situations and feeling confident in different food situations, from being at restaurants to parties and social events where food might be a focal point. So getting a hold on your eating habits, getting control of your sugar cravings, this can help you to build positive experiences with food in any situation. And so what it's about, what breaking free from sugar cravings is about taking back the power that this food has over you that it shouldn't have. So I want to help you take the power back from this food. It's about reconnecting your mind and your body. And it's about nourishing your body and your soul. And so at the end of the webinar, we'll show you how to do these things. Now, if you can relate to having sugar cravings, you can probably relate to this idea of black and white thinking around food. And so you might tend to swing back and forth on this pendulum between being the food police and the food rebel. And so when you're the food police, you might tend to be a little bit more restrictive and trying to avoid these foods that you feel out of control with. Until you don't, until you have that food, and then you swing back to the other side where you're more of this food rebel, and it's kind of like, well, the day is ruined because I've had such and such, so I might as well keep it going. So it's a lot of the back and forth, the all or nothing, and it's rarely ever in the middle, in this middle ground of balance. And so I would love to show you what that balance can look like and feel like. You may have heard the term internal and external cues when it comes to hunger. You know, as kids, as children, we naturally know how to respond to our hunger cues. An infant cries when they're hungry and stops crying when they're satisfied with food. Children, toddlers and children can do the same. And at some point as an adult, we're taught more to listen to external cues than our body's internal cues to tell us when to start and stop eating and what to eat and how much. And so breaking free from sugar cravings is about getting in touch with those internal cues again and learning to trust your body. And so some of those internal cues that are going to be the focus of breaking free from sugar cravings are the hunger, your fullness, your cravings, the flavors, textures, colors, and smells of food. The external cues that you have been taught to rely on are calories, food labels, fat grams, portion sizes, food pyramids. And so breaking free from sugar cravings is about moving away from the external cues and relying more on your body cues. And so stick around to the end of the webinar and we'll show you how to get in touch with your internal cues. And I want to share with you a testimonial from one of our clients, a participant from Denver. The name's not important. What's important is what she says about the Anchor program. She says, my struggle has always been to try to gain control of my eating without it relapsing into binge purging habits. Something about this feels both forgiving and empowering. For the first time ever, it feels like my body gets it. And that is just really powerful and makes me happy that she has gotten in touch with her body in the way that she doesn't have to rely on those external cues anymore. And now I believe it's time for a couple of questions just to kind of summarize what this is all about.
Thank you so much, Courtney. That was wonderful. And I want to just ask people to stop for a minute, check in with yourself and see how you're doing. Hopefully you're getting a lot out of this. You're making notes. You're gaining some insights. So I have a couple of questions that come from people just like our listeners. And one is, a lot of people say to me, I've heard more than once, well, you know, you talk about changing my eating habits, but the thing is, I really love food. I love ice cream. I love cake, whatever your, you know, favorite food is. So how do you approach people who say, well, it's, you know, it's not a problem for me. The reason I'm having trouble is I just love food.
Yes, that's a great question that I get all the time, Dr. Ross. Thank you for asking that. And yeah, it's like, I really love cake. Well, what I would ask that person is to describe what they love about the cake, writing that down on a piece of paper, what specifically they love. And it's probably going to be difficult for them to do, because a lot of times when someone's saying that they just really love this certain food, they're not actually eating it mindfully to where they really taste it and enjoy it. They're usually kind of using it for comfort, eating it really quickly, stuffing it down. And so they may not be realizing that they're actually just using this food as opposed to really loving it.
Yeah.
Instead of enjoying it, yeah.
Well, one last question from someone is that, you know, many of the people that you and I work with, and just like the people who are listening to the webinar, have been on multiple different programs and, you know, all kinds of things that they've tried. And I hear a lot of confusion amongst people about, somebody told me to do this, or I'm supposed to do that. And they just kind of have lost track of what they should be doing, or don't understand what they should be doing. How do you deal with that? They don't even know what to eat anymore.
Yes, and I completely understand that, for all the information, misinformation that's out there on the internet, and social media, and everywhere. And so I encourage people to just start with the basics, you know, and until you have a more specific guide from a professional, start with just a meal schedule of some kind to get your body on track with getting regular fuel. So if you tend to skip meals, start having something at that meal time. Just something is better than nothing. And ideally, it's going to be 3 or more food groups at a meal. But again, something's better than nothing.
So you're saying basically just start with some kind of structure and then observe how your body feels with that structure. And then you can make decisions based on that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Good answer. Okay, Courtney, so for those people who are listening, do you have any words of wisdom about what the next steps could be for them?
You want to change, but you really don't know what that looks like. You've been down so many different roads that you're not sure whether it's worth it to try again. But there's a voice inside of you that really wants things to be different. You may be dealing with a medical problem and you want to be healthier. You may just want to stop the obsessive thoughts and cravings from running your life. Wherever you are, we will be there with you every step of the way. You will have an opportunity to change and to take a different path.
Okay. Thank you, Courtney. That was great.
Thank you.
So I again want to ask people to check in with themselves. How are you doing? What are you learning? What kinds of insights are you having? Just write it down so that you will have a basis for making the decisions that you want to make in your life to change your lifestyle. Thanks again for joining us on this webinar. The next video coming up will be You Are Not craving what you think you are craving. And that's with Leslie Bench, who is a therapist in Nashville, Tennessee, and an expert in the treatment of eating disorders and addictions. So look for the next part of the webinar coming to you soon.